Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Today on Another View, our roundtable pundits give their perspectives on these questions. Why are African Americans and Latinos more likely to serve prison time for minor drug offenses? And speaking of prisons, did you know it's a myth that more black men are in prison than in college? And why is a critical remark of the black community made by an African American seemingly okay, while that same remark made by a white person is considered racist? Hot topics for the Another View Roundtable. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. I hope you are enjoying this beautiful Friday afternoon and that you're able to get some sunshine. And thanks for carrying us with you as you're eating your lunch and listening to us. Today is Roundtable Day, so you know it's going to be exciting. But before we get to our roundtable, I want to invite you to a panel discussion on April the 17th, where legal experts and scholars will discuss early American history and how it led to the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Now, the panel discussion is called Constructing Citizenship from 1619 to the 1964 Civil Rights Act. You know that this is the 50th year anniversary of that act. And it's at Norfolk State University. It is free and open to the public. And if you'd like to attend, visit their website at 1619makingofamerica.com and register. 1619makingofamerica.com and register for the Scholars Roundtable. I have the pleasure of serving as the moderator for that discussion, and we're going to have a good time. So I hope that you will join us. So we've got a lot to talk about with the Another View Roundtable today. Please welcome Roger Chesley. He's a columnist with the Virginian Pilot, and you can read his columns every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Hi, Roger.
How are you doing, Barbara?
I'm doing great. Good to see you again.
Always.
Absolutely. And the man who loves to stir it up and keeps the roundtable on its toes is Mr. Bill Thomas. Hi, Bill.
Yeah, I just took my sedative, so we should be okay today.
Yeah, we'll see. And the hardest working man in media joins us. Will Levice is an author, a journalist, and a talk show host. Hi, Will.
How you doing, Bob?
Good to see you.
Good to see you all.
And hopefully Carol Pretlow will join us. She's been feeling a little under the weather, but I think she's on her way. So we'll get the conversation going, and hopefully she'll be able to join us soon. Now, before we start talking about the topics for today, gentlemen, we have to say congratulations to Roger Chesley. He won second place award from the Virginia Press Association for his columns in the paper, and the Virginian Pilot won first place. Is that right, overall?
Yeah, if you can combine with the advertising folks on it, we did win first place.
So congratulations, Roger.
Thank you very much.
It's wonderful to be recognized by your peers.
Yes, most certainly. It's the first time I got anything from for the column
writing. For your column writing, not outside of the editorial.
Right, for the Virginia Press Association. I'd gotten something for editorial writing before, but this is the first time I gotten something for column writing. So I was pretty jazzed by that.
That's fantastic. Don't you guys want to say congratulations?
I think it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
No, every once in a while, he comes up with some very good stuff. I think the columns you had last week were pretty good. Not really good. They were really good.
Well, thank you. I'm glad Bill, though, wasn't on the judging panel. I might not have won.
The truth of the matter is his best stuff he probably didn't get recognized for. They probably recognized him for some typical foolishness that he wrote.
I do recognize excellence. And I do show my appreciation regardless of what spectrum. And Roger does a good job.
Well,
absolutely.
And I have sent him notes before.
Which column did you win for? The one about the cat and the hat or something like that?
If I had done about the dog, too, I would have gotten first place.
There you go.
There you go.
Absolutely. And we also want to say congratulations to our very own Lisa Godley, who won not one, but 2 Telly Awards for her work in television on Channel 15 here. She won for First Africans in Virginia, and also a piece she did on the contraband movement. And these played along with Henry Louis Gates' The African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross, which was a series that was aired on PBS. So congrats to our Lisa Godley. She is producer extraordinaire and reporter extraordinaire.
So that we aren't coming across as gender bias, those two programs she did were actually excellent. And they were well worth watching, well constructed, well researched. So
Fantastic.
Congratulations, Lisa.
Way to go, Lisa.
And Lisa just sent me a note saying thank you to you guys.
Yeah,
So-
you know what?
She does fantastic
She is
work
very
in
attractive
this
as well.
station. you know,
See, you had to put that thing in there.
He couldn't hold it off.
He couldn't handle it. All right,
looking
come on.
woman.
Let's
Taking his minute.
Hey,
Let's get to our topics today. The Justice Policy Institute released a report focused on how much money Virginia spends on correctional facilities and said Virginia continues to, quote, have worrisome racial and ethnic disparities in how the state deals with drugs and drug crimes. African Americans are 20% of the population of Virginia, but 60% of the prison population and 72% of people arrested for drugs. Roger, you wrote a column on this.
I did, and I think while we understand that folks have to be in prison if they're charged with serious violent crimes, the most illuminating or the thing that really jumps out in the report is that for similar crimes, it seems like blacks are getting treated much more harshly, especially on drug crimes, and especially for drug possession crimes as opposed to drug dealing or drug conspiracy crimes. And I think the reason why I wrote the column was you still see this very inequity within the system. And yes, okay, there are some people who would say, well, aren't folks doing crimes? Yes, the point is not that folks are committing crimes. The point is, why are some people treated more harshly than others for basically the same type of crime? And, I think I'll be writing more about this. I know some of the comments that I got from callers and emailers are, well, don't do the crime. If you do the crime, you're going to do the time. But the important fact is some people aren't doing the time. And so why is it okay for some people to be treated one way and others to be treated much more severely? And I think that was the main thing that came out of the report.
That report. Carol Pretlow is here now. She joins us. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
She's getting her headset on and getting set. So I'm not going to ask you to respond right now. I will go to Will while you get all set up. So why are we treated differently?
We've talked about this so many times on this show that we've got institutional and systemic problem when it comes to race. And over the generations, over the years in this country, we're just so more willing to accept the worst or expect the worst or believe the worst when it comes to African Americans than when it comes to other groups of people. So African Americans are, because of the situation in which many of us find ourselves, are more exposed to situations that breed crime. And so therefore, and then you come into the justice system, and this belief of wanting to believe the worst in someone is ingrained in the way that we operate. And the fact of the matter is that if you take, as I've said before, if you take any type of human being and put them in certain conditions, you're going to get certain results. But in our country, we are more ingrained and willing to believe that, well, that's a black genetic thing. And so therefore, do the time, do the crime.
The Department of Education,
the
Department of Education even came up with, and this is just staggering to me, that black students are more likely to be suspended from U.S. public schools, even as preschoolers. Preschoolers, Bill.
Preschoolers acting up, put them out. But what gets me about this liberal agenda and how black people have really, really lost it, in my judgment, I think every major Commonwealth attorney in Hampton Roads is black. I think so, except for Portsmouth. But I know...
Not in Chesapeake.
Not in Chesapeake. Chesapeake and Portsmouth. I know Hampton, Newport News, Norfolk. but majority of them are.
Not Virginia Beach. Either.
Not, I don't consider Virginia Beach, but anyhow. The other issue.
It's the largest city in the Commonwealth, Bill.
Hey, I live in
Consider
Virginia Beach. Come on now.
You don't have a reason to go to Virginia Beach. Well, we won't go there. We won't go there. We won't go there.
Don't go there.
We won't go there. But my point is, then we have the elected officials in the city council. We have the elected officials are in the General Assembly. We have the congressman. We have everything. Again, I do 100,000% agree with what Will is saying because it is true. But if we don't have our elected officials and our citizenry changing policy, that will affect that'll affect lives.
Yeah.
That will affect lives. And the other thing that I mentioned at last week's show, we used to have, when I grew up, we had in little Kansas City at least 15 civil rights lawyers that used to represent the African American community. There used to be a number of them here. Sonny Cuffey, I could just go through a whole. I can't think of one African American civil rights attorney that protected the rights that Will and I are talking about, trying to defend the Constitution that impact us the same way, so you won't have these discrepancies in a policy matter. Because they're not going to change until the policy change. That is our problem. All the lawyers, and I have 2 kids that are lawyers. They're not going to practice that kind of stuff. So it just doesn't exist anymore.
But the issue too that we have to be honest about is that, as I've talked about racism, black people were bought into racism too.
Hey,
you have a lot of people who are black and who are in position
absolutely
to make a difference and have their perspective
So you're
lent to
saying
this
that they're
situation.
under the same
They're
solutions as everyone
they're
else.
not of a previous generations.
Yes.
You had people who were called race men and race women who were coming out of the generations of they were ingrained with a different mindset of, look, we've got to fight for justice and equality. We owe our people a certain type of justice and equality because of what has happened in the past. We've got generations of people. I'm talking about my own generation in many cases as a Gen Xer, or some of the baby boomers who have a mindset of, hey, well, do the crime,
Do the time,
do
it
the
doesn't
time,
matter.
and whatever, and for whatever their advantages
Well, and I want to
are,
make sure that our
buy
audience
into that as
understands,
well.
though, that we're talking about equal treatment.
Exactly.
We're not
Right.
dismissing the crime.
Right.
We're talking about if 2 people do the same crime, that more likely the African American gets a harsher sentence.
And I go back to New York's policy of stop and frisk, and one of the things that I've written about that and I've said publicly about that is, sure, when you come across the street and you frisk some people, you'll get some of the folks who might be doing something illegal, but you're alienating perhaps 90% of the people who are doing nothing wrong and just walking down the street and minding his or her own business. And so you had all these African Americans who were constantly being stopped and frisked, guilty of nothing. So, in the targeting and the concerns about that, you're angering more people than you're actually, getting somebody who's doing something wrong. And that makes people very angry toward the system, very angry toward the way certain rules are implemented.
Carol, you finally got it all settled.
They got settled.
So do you want to respond to this whole idea of African Americans being treated differently in terms of the number of arrests and punishments for drug crimes?
Well, I don't know that I have anything significant to add other than that when you look at it historically and you look at racism historically, there's always the idea that we have to justify the racism. And so with that justification comes an explanation. And here's my explanation for. And then we're supposed to just accept it because it is an explanation without looking beyond the surface and understanding and analyzing just what this does to specific communities.
Bill, you shaking your
No,
head.
but I got to ask Roger, the award-winning columnist at the Virginia Pilot. Why is this not a big deal in the African-American political community? Why do we march down to Richmond with these staggering numbers? Nobody is holding our people accountable, responsible, or anything. And this can be changed not by what people think, but what the law and policy allows you to do. You know these folks are not getting equal representation. You know that money plays a big factor in it. Those are things that policy can change, and if it's no more than trying to get more educated people in the system to represent these people. But why is it not a number one agenda for our elected officials? Why is that?
I think that that's a good question, and I quite frankly don't know. Now, you would say that some of that change would probably have to come in the General Assembly, and the African American legislators in the General Assembly, especially in the House, they don't have that much clout because they're in the minority. So it's going to be limited what they could push through, and we also know that the General Assembly generally has been tough on crime in this state.
One more question. The Senate is tied 20-20. So why can't they get together and say, if you don't change this House, we're not going to ever vote for a budget?
But let me ask you this, Carol, as a political scientist here. If the community is not demanding this, is that why the legislation then is not pulling through?
I think that's a part of it, but I also agree that part of it is money. And who do you back? And I hate to say this, who do you pay to vote in your direction? And what kind of coalitions can you form to get legislation passed? Because it's not just about theoretically what the good idea is and what is of benefit sociologically. It's also influence.
Okay. One last thing on this.
It's leadership. We're bypassing all this stuff. Money doesn't buy leadership. Leadership. We would have never had a Martin Luther King. We would have never had a Gandhi. We would have never had people that really just were solid leaders that took a cause on and stayed with it until the day they died.
Well, it's also class, too. Some of the people, again, who are in these leadership positions are of a different mindset in terms of social class.
Wow.
And so you're talking about people picked up for drug crimes. A lot of these folks, poor folk, don't really vote, don't really matter, don't live in my neighborhood. Why should I really care? Again,
why go to bat on something that's not necessarily a popular issue?
Wow.
And that might have limited political benefit for the people who would be putting their necks out.
Okay, so related to this whole topic then, conventional wisdom, even quoted by President Obama, is that there are more African-American males in prison than in college. Now, the origin of this statement comes from a 2000 report, in the year 2000 by the Justice Policy Institute that found more black men in prison than in college. It seems that is not true. There was a problem with the count. Let's listen to a clip first, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Justice Policy Institute will concede the fact that there are more black men in college today than there are in prison. And the number isn't even close. There is a dispute about whether it was ever true. So one of the things I noticed was among the colleges that had significant numbers of black males today, but none reported in 2011, was several historically black universities. There were some big state universities. There was also Temple University. Now, the kicker about Temple University is I was there in 2001 as a PhD student. So if you say there are more black men in prison than in college, you're not even counting me. So what it appears that happened around here is that we just didn't have an accurate count. Why does this matter? It made us believe that we need to save them from prison before we could even speak about college. But really what we were doing was we were ignoring the millions of young black males who were sitting in these schools, who often feared their own safety, who were just saying, I just want somebody to show me what a college looks like. I just want somebody to tell me how to do good on the SAT. I just need somebody to sit down with me and show me the admissions criteria for various universities and let me know whether or not I'm getting that from this high school. Instead of people coming in saying, we need you to stay away from that game.
Now, that was Professor Ivory Tolson from Howard University.
That's a great university, by the way.
Yes, because you are an alma mater. That is your alma mater.
Right.
Absolutely. But Will, when he talked about Temple University, that he was there and he wasn't even counted, you shook your head.
Yeah, because I attended Temple University before he did, as part of my program in journalism at Lincoln University, the first historically black college that has created many a great men and women.
Don't forget Bennett.
And don't forget Fisk.
Right. So there's plenty of black students at Temple, plenty of black students at Lincoln. I'm now a PhD student at ODU. There's more black students at ODU than at Norfolk State. The bottom line is that, as I said earlier, is that how we're so quick and ready to believe the worst about ourselves and the worst about black people as a country because of how we've been ingrained into this mindset that here you have, the Justice Policy Institute, which is really about pushing for justice and equality. They meant well, but their data was off. And so they're not analyzing and say, hold on, let me double check and make sure we got all the reports from all the black colleges. No, the inclination is to believe the worst.
Roger, I mean, the idea that you would not even include the historically black colleges and universities in the count, and this spread, I mean, everybody took this on as gospel truth.
Okay, well, I've got two points about this. First of all, I don't know how you could even try to do a report like this and not to consider, well, there are going to be a lot of black students at historically black colleges and universities.
Hello.
Yeah. So there's that. And then there are certain, as Will pointed out, there's going to be certain universities that are majority white universities but still have large percentages of black students. So there's that. But, to throw a bit of a damper on this, even Professor Tolson, acknowledge, hey, there are 841,000 black men in prison. That's still a staggering number. That's still a lot of people. Yeah. And, we still got to try to figure out a way, how can we stop this pipeline that gets so many of our people into prison or into jails? That's nothing. Yeah, I'm happy that there are more of us in colleges, but that's still a staggering number. We're still very much disproportionately represented in the system.
Carol, you want to talk?
Well, one of the things, and I did teach in a prison program at Southampton Correctional Center, and I noticed that.
Did you stay overnight?
Okay, no. All right, let's focus.
You weren't in the prison. You were just teaching there.
I was teaching there. Yeah. One of the things that I noticed in my classes that the core group of students there were intelligent, articulate, well-read, but somehow they had gotten involved in the life of crime, not because they weren't intelligent, but because of their backgrounds and their economic situation, because there were a large measure of them there for crimes like burglary and things like that. So that comes out of an economic condition as well. So my thoughts at the time was that if we could address the economic issues all along, then maybe we could stand a chance of stemming this.
And changing it.
That's our problem. It's not an economic issue. That's always constant. I mean, that's constant everywhere.
Still,
it's a moral issue. You don't steal. You don't take something that's not yours. You don't have babies that you're not going to love and worry about their safety, health, and welfare every day of the year. If you don't have morality, if you don't have faith in something, if you can't be beside yourself or taking from me because you don't have for some excuse to steal, you will have this, and it will continue to happen, Ms. Carroll.
Well, I think you're right about morality, and I think I'm essentially a moral person. But if I'm hungry and can't figure out how to feed my family, I'm sorry, I'm stealing.
You're immoral. But then you're still immoral.
And then you go before the justice system.
Immoral.
It is still immoral.
But then
okay, hold on. That will
but to support both of your points and what Roger said earlier, then you go before the justice system after you've been caught, and the justice system hears your story, and then says, well, because you're white and you were trying to survive, we'll give you a lesser sentence. But, if you're black and you were trying to survive, no, we're not going for that. You did the crime, you do the time. It's just like that photo in the USA Today when people in Katrina were out in the middle of the ocean trying to survive. down the middle of the war to try to survive. The white couple, they were getting food to advance their survival. Oh, look at these looters.
And
this is what we want to believe. Black and whites and other groups in this country, this is what we want to believe.
And another area is that person that you're talking about who gets off or gets a lesser sentence also has a well-paid lawyer and so justice sometimes depends on who you can afford to pay to defend you. And whereas the public defender has all these cases, and not that they aren't well qualified and well trained and want to do the job, but they have an overload. So,
quick question, Carolyn. Quick question. Why not teach your children not to steal, not to kill somebody, not to act in a behavior that's abnormal to the society you're living in? Why can't we start there? Problems aren't all complex. If you don't steal, hunger is a mighty motivator.
I think we all agree with that.
Then I think that's where you got to go. The other things are excuses. Don't steal.
It's not an excuse.
The
if
system
you're
is
hungry.
not fair. Don't steal. Don't steal.
If you're just joining us, we're talking with our Another View Roundtable pundits, Roger Chesley with the Virginian Pilot, Carol Pretlow with Norfolk State University, community activist Bill Thomas, and journalist, author, and talk show host Will Levis. Go ahead, Roger. You can make another point on that.
Just another side point on Professor Tolson. I mean, he has been in the area before. I've interviewed him before. He's been to Park Place to discuss issues around race and education. And I mean, he is trying to show, not just in this report, but in others, there are ways that we can boost the self-esteem of our students. What do we need to do to help our black young men do better in school? So, I mean, yes, this was kind of a shot at the way some of these statistics were formed, but he's also done things that says, hey, let's help some of these young men while they're in school to make them think, hey, they can do better. Let's educate them. Let's use some of these techniques. So that kind of goes to the point that you're saying about, trying to keep people out of criminality in the first place.
Well, but one young man who needed no boosting in terms of his self-esteem, Kwasi Enan of Shirley, New York. He was accepted by all 8 Ivy League schools. He's first-generation American, and his parents immigrated from Ghana. Bill, you brought him up as we were talking about our issues for today.
No, absolutely. I mean, but his parents were immigrants. They were taught certain values. They brought those values to their community, and they brought it to. I don't know if you saw the handsome kid. Did you see him? How well he was dressed? It's a whole creative mode of where this young man is. And then again, he's not. I know kids that got accepted at 3 Ivy League schools and every major university in the country. My kids did. But what I'm saying, the fact is that if you have the background that his parents, that base of putting everything, did you read their parents' statements of what they did to that kid? And did you hear what he said?
Yes.
He said if he did 89% or 90%, they said, no, that's not good enough.
That's not good enough.
But
do you think
hold on, let me bring Will in here first.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that struck me was that his parents sounded very much like mine.
Absolutely. Oh no, they were mine.
And the other thing was they were both on the same page.
Absolutely.
When you have 2 parents, or if it's a single parent situation, and that parent is really aggressive and really on top of it on the same page, you dramatically increase the likelihood of success. Now, the kid is still an individual. It's still whether they're going to listen or not or rebel, because there's a lot of parents who have been engaged and hovered over their kids, and their kids is still turned around and put up their middle finger going the other way. Now, the other point is I want to bring to Bill. Okay, if you've got 2 parents who are engaged, okay, great, you've increased the likelihood of success. So what about if you don't have parents who are engaged, who are dysfunctional? Tell me now, what are you going to do with that child?
I think what we do, and I think it's draconianly bad, we spend 90% of remediation money on trying to make the bad good. I'd say switch the numbers around. Everybody around this table had good parents, good grandparents, and taught us. Now, we go the way we go, but at least we were shown the right way. I just think it's a misallocation of resources.
So are you saying then that there should be more resources put on education, on educating parents, on doing things to build a positive child as opposed to going to prison system and so forth?
Absolutely.
Okay, Roger.
I would hate to say that we write off anybody. And that's what I fear, what I'm hearing from you, Bill. And I understand where that's coming from. I think, the sentiment. But there's a popular thing that goes around on Facebook about you don't always know where somebody's going to be later in life. And they show a picture of Malcolm X with his mugshot photo, and then they show a photo of him later on in life and some of the things he was able to accomplish, some of the ways he was able to inspire people. The turn he made from the Nation of Islam to, a broader sense of the religion. And so, yeah, a lot of kids might not do that quite that 180-degree turn, but a lot of them will.
And there are a lot of kids who grow up in poor situations in single-family homes and so forth who do make it.
Right.
Carol?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing that Roger was thinking. I don't want to give up on people. I want to say, okay, you come from an unfortunate situation. There are mediating circumstances. What can I do to help? What can we do to help them bridge the gap and move on? But just to walk away and say, oh, well, they're hopeless, move on. No, I don't think that's the solution.
I did not say that.
What did you say?
What I said is that we take 98% of the money and the funding with these prisons, with all these counseling and feel good, when it gets right down to morals. And the one thing about Malcolm X, he was raised right by his dad and his mother, who were staunch defenders of discipline, order, and control. He just got back on track. What I'm saying is the fact is we are wasting too many resources on these social programs, on these education programs, on things where people don't want them. Let's concentrate 98% of our resources on the loving poor mother, single mom, or married couple. Let's concentrate on them who want to improve themselves like this immigrant kid from his parents did. Let's do that.
Well,
that's why a lot of people are fleeing the Republican Party and their approach to things, because they don't have an answer. Your listeners were smart enough to know and hear that, Bill, you did not answer the question. You did not say anything about dysfunctional parents. How do I take this child whose parents are on drugs, have been exposed to traumas, they're dysfunctional? What do I do with that kid to give that child an opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness in this country? He did not give you an answer.
I did give you an answer.
No, you didn't. You didn't address that kid.
Yes.
And your listeners are smart enough to know that you didn't.
Well, here's where you're going to go. America is bankrupt right now. We're probably $20 trillion in debt. We're getting ready to lose a huge part of our money to DOD that they're cutting back, which is going to devastate this area. The taxpaying base is much minimized than it was when we were growing up. Number one, we don't have the money to do anything. Lord knows we got to take the few precious resources that we have to put them into the value of people that understand the difference between right and wrong. And we'd give everybody the chance. This is right and this is wrong. So what I'm saying is, we'll take 98% of the money, find those parents that are willing, that want to go to school, that understand stealing is immoral, and take them and put the money into them, and the rest, y'all can call it what you want to call it.
Well, wait, hold on.
I don't see it quite the same way, because I know a lot of our money is tied up in entitlements, and if we're seriously willing to look at them, we will be able to free up some of that money. Now that we've gotten out of Iraq, getting out of Afghanistan, we should be able to pay down some of the problems and some of the money. If we're really serious about this, we'll look at some of the tax breaks that we give to the rich, and that take up a lot of the money that could be going to the Treasury. So if we're serious, we've got money that we can spend. It's a question of priorities. It's a question of what do we think is important, and it's also a question of, if you want to turn it a little bit, wouldn't you rather this child that has been demonized so much, wouldn't you rather him be a better person, be an outstanding adult, and then instead of somebody you're scared of that's going to shoot you or is going to prey on you? Seems to me we'd want to spend more money turning that situation around.
Carol, you get the last word on this topic.
I agree with Roger, and I think we should go with that. That's excellent.
Okay. All right, I want to move on to another topic that causes a lot of interest. It should be an interesting discussion. Okay. The reaction to Paul Ryan's comments about inner city men not wanting to work. That was a swift reaction. He was called racist. He was demonized, etc. Yet there are black people who have said the same thing and gotten no reaction. I want to listen to a clip from Real Time with Bill Maher.
Here's something else Paul Ryan said. He said, when it comes to getting an education, too many of our young people just can't be bothered. They're sitting on couches for hours playing video games, watching TV. Instead of dreaming of being a teacher or a lawyer or a business leader, they're fantasizing about being a baller or a rapper.
Or a comedian.
Oh, wait, that wasn't him. That was Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama said that.
No, I don't think this is a
Hushed
Republican
silence.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think this is a Republican or a Democrat issue. This is a people issue.
Yeah, but you just called, Ryan
suddenly.
What? You just called Ryan a racist. Basically.
Did I actually say he's a racist?
Basically.
No, I said he's talking about black people. There's no basically calling somebody
But come on.
you're racist or you're not a racist.
I just read this, and you thought it was from Paul Ryan.
Because you told
And
me it was.
For a reason. I'm just asking, is something less true if a white person says it about black people?
The truth is the truth and a lie is a lie. I'm not here to represent the side of, like, if black people say it, it's more true because black people said it.
No, but it does sound like Michelle Obama is agreeing with Paul Ryan. It does. This sounds more. This sounds even more like, "Hey, black people, don't be lazy."
Well, that
than
sort of
Paul Ryan.
First of all, where did she say it? She said it in front of black people with no cameras.
She said it at Bowie State commencement speech.
See, there, that's black people. She's talking to black people. We talk to each other differently than we talk in front of you.
All right.
Okay, so do we talk to each other differently in front of white people than we do in front of black folks? And by the way, it is Bowie State University. You know, it drives me a little bit crazy that
David Bowie
people that David Bowie said it's Bowie State University. Will, I'm going to start with you.
I think we all do. I think all groups of people talk differently amongst their own group than they do other groups of people. I think that's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think,
why then, if Paul Ryan says there's this group of men and they don't want to work, and then Michelle Obama turns around and says instead of walking miles to school every day, they're sitting on couches for hours playing video games. Instead of dreaming of being a teacher, they're fantasizing about being a baller or a rapper.
I think they're equally problematic. You remember when President Obama went before Morehouse and talked about, black men ought to be responsible with their children. Morehouse? I mean, you're sitting in front of these are the black that you. I mean, hello. So I think it's problematic either way. And the problem with Paul Ryan, for example, in him making that statement is that there's more poor whites than there are blacks.
But nobody called Michelle Obama a racist. They did call Paul Ryan a racist.
Well, what does it mean to be a racist? A racist means
changing the subject.
I'm not changing the subject.
Answer the question.
Answer
the question.
What it means to be a racist is someone who is basically expressing bigotry plus has the power to put in a policy to keep you down. That's
Michelle
what
Obama
racism
doesn't have power.
No,
she sleeps next to the president. Oh, come on!
What power does she have to put forth policy? What power does she have?
These things.
She can do policy. You guys
really?
Yeah, she can do policy.
Okay.
Roger.
It's partly the messenger, the message, and the setting. Of course, Michelle Obama knows that if she says this in a public setting, it is going to be, it's not like it's just a talk among the family. So she knows that that's going to go public, and she knows that that's going to get wide dissemination. However, if you have somebody who generally has your best interests at heart, and you make a statement, the people hearing it are going to be more receptive to that statement. I can't tell you how many times I have gotten emails or phone calls from whites saying, hey, why don't you write a column that talks about the lack of parental responsibility or the lack of, other issues that would be helpful to the black community? And I say, first of all, I've written those types of columns. But second of all, you don't like hearing when I talk about the things where there's inequity in the system. And so that's why you're saying that now. I said, you are free to write an op-ed or a letter to the editor about it. You don't want to do it because you don't want to be put out there and have to defend your statements. If you haven't spoken in a way that is boosting a certain people, then, and you're always seen as demonizing the person, then you're not going to be taken with perhaps in the way you would like to be taken, because everybody's going to say, you're an enemy of me. You're not a friend of mine. You're always talking bad about me. So that's why, at least Michelle Obama, people will say, well, she's got our best interests at heart. So that's why she's probably, the people hearing the message will probably be more receptive to the message.
Carol?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's both. It's two parts. It's the person who's conveying the message and who they are conveying it to. And again, a person in a situation, a black person can say things about another black person that is kind of suspicious when it comes from another perspective, mainly because you don't know the context in which the person is saying, their background, and some of the things that may have influenced their thinking.
Well, Bill Cosby got roundly trounced when he brought up issues.
Similar.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm glad Jesus Christ isn't walking around on the earth today, because the truth is the truth, no matter where it comes from. Paul Ryan didn't say anything different than the president has said, than his wife has said, Bill Cosby, and others. And I'm getting almost depressed about the status where we won't accept reality. Morals, and I'll shut up after this, Will. If our people, and white folks, but we're talking about African-American issues.
Right.
If we and we're all not moral, not perfect, and everybody, I can't throw nobody anything, the mud come back at me, but if I would have obeyed, I'll put myself in that shoes, the 10 Commandments, and did exactly what my parents told me to do and how to do it, I think I would be a U.S. Senator or something else. It was the things that I got off track that kept me from maximizing my potential. And this is what I see in the black community. We want to take these old adages that we know are right, moral, just the 10 Commandments. If these people that are in jail would just obey the 10 Commandments, they wouldn't be in jail. Now, you could say for whatever reason, for whatever else, but even my own perspective, I go to Will, if we as a people don't become moral, if we don't take the moral leadership, especially from the blacks that have and don't have, and et cetera, and will that into our community, this discussion is never going to end.
Well,
all Americans need to become moral. All Americans.
Okay, good.
I already said that.
Okay.
You got to
Here's from the census figures, 2013. 18.9 million whites are poor. That's 8 million more white people than black people, 5 million more than Latinos. Most people who are surviving on food stamps, Medicare, are white.
Right.
So why is Paul Ryan just talking about folks who are majority black and Latino as having a work ethic problem? What is that about? We all know what that is about. That is about what we said earlier in this show. We want to believe the worst of ourselves. We want to put that on a certain group of people, and then we want to talk to our constituencies and throw these codes out there that's going to make them vote for us. Paul Ryan, I would have loved for him to have said, we have in America a problem with poverty and people not working. Here are the numbers in rural areas. Here's the number in urban areas. Here is my plan to do something. That is what we continue to keep missing from the Republic. And we've heard it right here in this discussion. I asked him a specific issue.
I answered the
question.
Do you
have, and what he essentially said about the poor child whose parents are dysfunctional, start building more prisons.
No, I did not.
That's what he essentially
said. Take resources.
That's the outcome.
You're not listening.
That's the outcome of what you said.
I didn't say
start
that.
building more prisons because you didn't have anything for them to do.
I didn't say that.
But,
right,
but rob somebody's house.
Let's let Bill respond.
Let me correct the record. I said don't put any more resources in prisons. Don't build any more prisons.
But what happens to all the kids that you wanted to push by the wayside because they don't have a parent?
Because you guys think the invert that the folks, when they see success and they see their people in their community growing and prospering, you think they're going to stay the same. I'm saying they're not. They're going to grow as well. And if Will did his statistics, go look at the deaths in Milwaukee. The last 2 days, they had 5 murders of black kids in Milwaukee. And all of that murder and all that chaos they got going on up there, I'm sure that is impacting him. And just because he's white, and just because he said it, and just because there's more white people on welfare and all these kinds of things, don't make us need to be like that. My parents told me when we were growing up, don't be like those white kids. They don't have any manners. They're disrespectful to their parents. Don't do that. You do that and bring them in the house, you get knocked out. So I don't believe in any of that stuff. And I'm sure your parents said the same thing. But don't give me that stuff. I don't want Carol and them whining and asking for more social programs and this and that and the other. Go darn it. If you don't work, you don't eat, and that's just going to be impacted on your family.
But
Go ahead,
what
Carol.
happened in that last statement you made about if you don't work, you don't eat? What about the fact that of employment and the numbers of people who now are unemployed, and the fact that some of them are employed but at very low wages? I mean, I have students who have graduated from college who are working at McDonald's, and I'm, not putting down McDonald's, but
Are they working?
They're working,
That's
but
good.
they are still poor. They still can't do and achieve what they want to.
Roger.
I'm a little bit baffled that some of these comments by some of our black leaders have come at commencement exercises. Obviously, these are the students, these are the young men and women who are achieving. And these are the folks who, have taken it upon themselves and have done well in school, have gotten their degrees. And so that's the thing that's kind of baffling. I mean, I think we sometimes need to be taken to the woodshed and say, and told, we can do better. We are failing somewhat on a macro level. We might be failing. But sometimes I just wonder the setting for,
It makes you wonder, right? It makes you wonder, who are they really talking to?
Right.
And in this media world that we live in, is this an opportunity for me to drop a message to another group of people while I'm standing in front of one, to another group that's going to be carried around, for me to drop a message and make me look a certain way? Because you're right. Who are you talking to? Morehouse?
The one thing I do. The one thing I do respect President Barack Obama on is having a consistent policy of not accepting excuses for anything that he's done, for his life, for where he is, or for not getting where he wanted to go. And that I respect. And he's almost like race neutral, the way he looks at that, because that's where we got to be. And then I'm more respectful for him because he respects his wife, his family, and he does everything to set that shining light on example, not as a black man, not as the black president, but as a man who honors morals and values while he's president of the United States. I respect that more. And so that is where I'm saying the community should go. I think he's leading the pathway. We just don't want to follow.
But here's the question. Why is it then, if someone is supportive of the African American community, why does that necessarily translate that they are against the white community? In other words, why can't you be pro-black but still still function within society and recognize that there are all kinds of people in society? But when we talk about, because I hear that criticism about this show a lot, that you're always talking about black people, you're causing more division, where our goal is, and what I hear the majority of, is that we are actually bringing people together because we're exposing a different perspective. So
I think the thing
why does that make us bad?
I think the thing that's important is that you talk to as many people as possible. You relate to people. I mean, I talk to anybody. You don't have to agree with me.
Exactly.
As long as you're civil, as long as you give me your point of view.
Exactly.
I think that sometimes people who have called me at the paper, and I've actually been there and talked to them, I think they've been somewhat surprised at the level of discourse that we can have. But I think sometimes we are so set in our viewpoints that we don't want to hear anything else, and that we're always clashing. I think it's good to have as many relationships and as many discussions with other people, if nothing else, just to see where they're coming from, and maybe to dispel some myths like one of the ones we dispelled today.
Exactly.
I think that some of the people who feel that way may possibly want to ask themselves, what are they in fear of giving up? If one group of people advances or people are able to compete. See, I believe that if I have an opportunity to compete on an equal playing field, that I'm going to do well. I firmly believe that. I also know there's been several times where I've not had that opportunity to operate on an equal playing field. So people who feel that way, we're talking positively about what we need to do and how we can all give people an opportunity for life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. What are you worried about that you may lose if another group of people are able to advance? Maybe they should ask themselves that.
Carol?
Yeah, I think it's a win-win. The more incorporated we are and the more we feel free to talk to each other and expose ourselves to differing views. And we might not agree, but let's talk and have a dialogue about it. And then maybe we can come up with a solution that benefits everybody.
Bill?
The solution is really simple. We can't have 80 to 90% of our children born into families, to non-families. You can't have that. I'm not talking about the marriage thing or anything. I'm just talking about committed relationships between the family and the family members. Before you go through all that, you can't have that. The children can't get a footing. And that's just like, Barbara, if I saw your daughter, who I know, and if I was out in the streets or whatever, and I saw her out in the streets, you know what I would do? Tell her to go home or call you. So, those are kinds of things that we used to do.
I agree.
And that's what we have to do, but we have to be moral. Now, I am fiercely black. I understand where I came from, and I'll defend it till hell freezes over and then fight them on the ice. But I'm also an American. So I don't want these differences. I just want to be able to maintain my integrity, my legacy, because I want that to grow and to prosper. At the same time, I know I got to get along with other people because we are all Americans and not all these different groups that everybody talks about.
We got 2 minutes left in this discussion, and I know we won't have time, but is anyone surprised by the National Urban League releasing its 2014 State of Black America called One Nation Underemployed, Jobs Rebuild America? Now, according to the report, unemployment inequality between blacks and whites has widened, with white unemployment rate dropping below 7% and black unemployment rate remaining at above 13%. Wow. Anybody surprised at that?
No,
not at all.
Nope.
Not at all. I mean, I think it's more of the same. How do you retool an economy that had been so much blue-collar work and semi-skilled trades, and now so much of it is IT, computer, and the like. And I think, as a people in general, we've been slow to pick up on that. And also so many jobs have fled our shores over the last couple of decades, too, that we are struggling to be employed or fully employed as we'd like to be.
Carol, one thing that they did say, the gap is most pronounced for women, many of whom have children and sole household income earners. You got 15 seconds.
Okay. Well, women face the same problems that their counterparts do, but to a greater degree. And so education becomes important, technology becomes important, and all of the skills become important. And I think we're getting there because there are more women at most universities. So.
We're out of time, round table.
Marriage is important.
As always, marriage is important.
Marriage is
and we got 10
important.
seconds.
Right.
You know what? We'll see you guys next month. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Claude McKnight of Group Take 6, and you're listening to Another View, Fridays at noon on WHRV 89.5 FM.
Nothing like some smooth music on a Friday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you'd like to hear this show or any of our Another View shows, please visit anotherviewradio.org and download the podcast. You can also sign up for our eView newsletter, which is a once-a-week reminder of upcoming programs. And we're on Facebook, so be sure to like us. Next week, we'll talk with some young entrepreneurs, students in high school and college who have started and are successful in business. And we even have a student from elementary school, so you won't want to miss that show. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Austin Bell answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. I hope you have a fabulous weekend, everyone. And let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View. And congratulations again to Roger and to Lisa. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.